All right. Boom. Am I losing it? Possibly. I I'm gonna be real. I couldn't think of what to put for the Discord post, so I just googled the lyrics for "Suavemente" by Elvis Crespo, and I just wrote down the lyrics, and then that's the Discord post. Great, good. Don't know who else even knows that song, but it was like for a few years in the YouTube like live streamer, like it was a meme. People knew about it for a few years. It was a thing when I was in college. So, and it's not a bad song. It's just goofy as hell. It's kind of like Rick Roll. Ah, yes, that. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually wanted to mention I'm really tired today after having gone to work yesterday and crashed out on stream on Friday and Saturday, having also been kind of busy. Uh, And plus, actually, pair this with some good news. I finally have air conditioning. Thankfully, it's not so hot today that I really need it. It's like 70 something degrees outside, so it feels fine in my room. But now I don't have to fucking die sweating like a really sweaty boy in my room. So I have an AC unit. One that will not cause internal water leakage problems, so long as I, every couple of weeks I take it and drain it of the moisture that builds up. All that to say, if you guys could I've heard of that story. If you could provide a link for that, I would be very grateful, and I will talk about it. Truth be told, I was thinking this would kind of be more of a chill live stream in terms of the vibes. I didn't plan for anything necessarily to be a segment, but I will talk about stuff. Um, and I also kind of wanted to maybe talk about like international politics as well. In fact, I was thinking about like ways that I could incorporate that a little bit more into uh, the live stream, talking about politics outside of the U.S. because politics in the U.S. are important, obviously for me particularly because I'm American. But God, sometimes it feels like everything I talk about is just this a different version of the same thing, being like, how much Nazism did the government do today? You know, and obviously that stuff is important, so I'll still talk about it. But there's other stuff that I feel like might deserve a mention. You know. Anyways, don't move at super speed. We deal with time slowly. Yeah, that's true. In fact, somebody pointed out recently that like apparently our perception of time has been really fucking warped by how fast the Trump administration was going. I didn't even realize just how fast things were unfolding until like somebody mentioned that like yeah, Trump signed more executive orders in the first month than in the first year of his presidency. Or actually, in all 4 years of his first term, he didn't sign as many executive orders as he did just in the first couple months. Taking life slowly is more healthy instead of just being a passenger. Yeah, because it's kind of like sometimes we labor under the illusion that like all this stuff that's happening all at once, we have to take it as it comes and deal with it right now. And I mean, like it is of import right now, but we can't act that fast. You just got to take it one thing at a time. And my Wii U has crashed, and my Wii remote is not responding. I have to resort to desperate measures, by which I mean unplugging my Wii U and then plugging it back in. So Germany didn't last like a year. Well, yeah, it was. Well, it lasted about 12 years, right? Nazi Germany was only a 12-year affair, and even at that, it was only as long as it was because they had war plunder to stabilize the economy more or less. You know. It's like, you know, I sent you the link. Yes, thank you. I opened it up. It is Fox News, so I don't know that I will be able to watch it. I think Fox News, does Fox News do Content ID? I don't know. I don't know if Fox News does Content ID. I did see this though. He was able to get away with it. Okay, that's how I found it. Yeah, yeah. I think I remember that. Yeah. Okay. In that case, maybe I'll pop this out for a little bit later. I can here. There we go. Minimize that. And I'll see if I want to talk about that first or something else. Let's see. No, content ID is not consistent. Yeah. Content ID is not consistent. I don't know how much that's gonna mean, but like I said, it's not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna turn this into a segment. At least probably not. So why don't I simply what's going on? My Wiimote did not activate there. Here, let's actually do some of this. And where's the timer? There it is. You down. Even though the timer takes up space on the screen, it makes the editing process actually like significantly easier. So I'm having it around still. All right, how are we looking there? The camera is slightly misaligned. There we go. Okay, problem solved. Now, prepare to be React Andy'd, probably. Maha agenda. Yay, thank you. Oh. Well, that's not what I wanted it to look like. I think I will have to do something like this, right? You hold Alt, and then yes, that's what you do. Okay, let's have these boundaries be nice and snug here. Then I will do this. Yeah, I guess that could be good. It'll be enough so that you can see the title. That's not what I meant to do. So you can see the title of the video and the channel that it's from. So bored in school, everyone was like, you want to play board games? There we go. That should be small enough for... I remember, you know, in 7th grade, you know, sometimes on the last day of school, in K-12 particularly, this is the case. In K-12, sometimes on the last day, they go really light on the classwork, so you just kind of get to goof around with your friends. I remember in 7th grade, this was back all the way back in middle school. I still remember this. On the last day of school before summer break, we just hung out in homeroom basically all day, and then like. Sorry for breaking the servers. You're forgiven in advance, I think. We had, like, those school computers, the, like, standard, what is it, like, Dell Optiplex or something? Where you have that, like, the computer itself is, like, laid down horizontally and the monitor's on top. We just played, like, Slendy Tubbies in class. And it was, like, the old school version of Slendy Tubbies. It looked like crap. And, of course, we were all, like, shitting ourselves because we were 12 years old. That was fun. And then we like went outside for some reason, and like they let us go home early. So I went home early, and that was a lot of fun. And I lived like 2 blocks from the not elementary, middle school, so I could just walk home. Even though I know this isn't the reason, I think they're called Fox News because foxes are shady. That's true. That's big facts. Foxes are not to be trusted. So why would anybody trust a news outlet that calls itself Fox News. Don't you know they're trying to lie to you, take your shit away from you? Something to think about. You know, when you think about it, that actually fits surprisingly well, given the fact that it was probably completely unintentional. You know, Fox is known for being very skittish and like, you know, being thieves and having traits of dishonesty and such. And meanwhile, Fox News' whole point is to justify the theft of wealth from the working class. I see the vision. Anyways, Maha, not a Hawaiian word, even though it sounds like it. It's actually a Nazi eugenicist slogan, unfortunately. Both in the fact that, you know, it exists and we're all subject to it. What's up, 1v3? Welcome back. We're going to be doing a little bit of react-andying to Fox News. Prepare to lose brain cells. Although it'll probably be more entertaining than losing brain cells to Jubilee, because we get to hear guys that are like in their 50s sound really stupid for money.
And a healthy person.
Oh yeah, and he's here too. RFK Jr. So maybe we will suffer, but something about camaraderie in the suffering, I don't know. We're talking about their like crank eugenicist agenda.
And has 1,000 dreams. The sick person only has one. And right now, there's 60% of the people in this country who have only one dream. If they can make it through a day without pain, with energy, without having to take medications.
Goal is to make America healthy.
I need to take a beat here, so I have access to my keyboard.
Again, let's bring in our guest, Dr.
Okay, there we go. I have my finger on the K key. That's going to allow me to pause and unpause as needed. Clips of Jubilee and Fox News about it. There's no Jubilee stuff. I was simply contrasting this to the time I watched Sam Cedar on Jubilee. This Fox News bit, this segment from Fox News, is about the RFK Jr.'s plans and the administration's plans for Make America Healthy Again. It'll become clear in a moment what they mean by that, because what they don't mean actually is utilize massive amounts of government funds for the production and distribution of vaccines at no cost, or you know, the negotiation of drug prices down from absurd heights and stuff like that. Yeah, it should be called MANA, Make America Nazi Again. Let's
Dr. Marty McCary,
see what he's got in
Food
store.
and Drug Administration Commissioner, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. Mehmet Oz, Administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and National Institutes of Health Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
So these are all administration officials.
Mr. Secretary, this is unique in that you work with all these guys very closely.
Oh, ow.
And it's a different scenario for HHS.
I actually had Tommy Thompson in this morning talking
Oh,
to
nice.
me, who was the HHS
That guy's way ahead.
job under the Bush administration, and I was talking about my relationship.
Who the fuck is that?
with these gentlemen who are running the agency, running the major sub-agencies of HHS. And
Why are
he
they
said
on
nothing
giant
like that
chairs?
ever happened.
Why are they on giant chairs? Because they're all 3-year-olds who are going to Applebee's or something, and they need to sit in the high seat so they can have their macaroni and cheese or something. I don't know. Truthfully, I do not know why they're sitting in high chairs. The interview would probably, like, work just as well if they were sitting in, like, lower, regular chairs. I think it's just a, like, aesthetic flourish that they did for this particular interview.
Happened in history. I say that I talk to them typically about 2.
Makes them look even smaller? Yeah. Maybe it's for the sake of framing them as an ensemble. If they look a little bit smaller on their own, it's easier to frame, like, the 4 of them and the interviewer in the same picture. I don't know. They use a similar format sometimes with those, like, televised town hall things, where it's like it'll be them on a stage and then there's a bunch of people in the audience. I don't know. It could have something to do with that, or, again, it could just be an aesthetic flourish. Don't think it's, like, anything particularly, pressing or whatever.
2 or 3 times a day. We're friends. We go to lunch together. We stay at each other's homes.
That's great.
We vacation together. And then, you know, we're aligned on in our vision. Friendship is based upon shared values, and that's the strongest bond that holds people together. And in this, we all...
It totally doesn't sound gay. Oh my god, they were roommates. Type shit. Yeah, fucking found the gay Nazis, guys. They're right here. We found them.
all share a vision that's been a lifelong vision for all of us, which is to make our country healthy, to have evidence-based science, to have gold standard replicable science, and then use that to challenge what we have this kind of bedrock system that is destroying our health, which is a complete misalignment of economic incentives and public health. Yesterday we met with the heads of all the pharmaceutical.
So far, this is just fluff.
Companies, and I said, I want
okay.
where you can make money by making people healthy. And right now, we're all aligned against each other.
Okay, look. Here's the first instance of them giving the game away, right? Even when they're saying, like, yeah, obviously we're gonna work with the industry that's responsible for producing all this shit. Like, you kind of have to do that. You have to communicate with them in some respect. They're framing this as a mutual public-private partnership where they are, like, saying... They're framing even making the... public health landscape of America better as a money-making venture. That's all that, like, even at their, like, most charitable and most favored media environment. Like, this Fox News is a friendly environment for these people. The world is their oyster to frame this issue however they want, however, what kind of propagandistic way they want, with little to no pushback, and literally the first place they go is like, hey, you know, there's potentially a lot of money to be made in making America healthy. You know, we could make all these, you know, pharmaceutical companies a lot of money. Like, the fuck? It's like they're asking for a second Luigi. Yeah, it is. It, like, legitimately, it's kind of crazy that, like, obviously you can take this as an indication of them being evil, which you should, because it is. But it's also an indication of just how out of touch they are, you know? Democrats get lambasted for being out of touch, rightly so, but, like, this applies to Republicans too, that they're like, how do we, like, launder our eugenicist scheme of, like, killing autistic children or something? I know, we're working with the big pharma to make America healthy again. They're gonna make a lot of money from this. Definitely, you know, cultivating the trust of the American people by framing a large, like, public health initiative from the perspective of what's going to make pharmaceutical giants and insurers a lot of money. Like, great. Love that.
Healthcare system in this country is a bundle of perverse incentives that force people to do the wrong thing. And
that actually is true. Because of how much money the pharmaceutical industry and insurance companies are preoccupied with making. It pushes people to, you know, put off treatment or not seek treatment at all. Even if I was evil, I would never use this language in this situation. Yeah, I mean, like, you have to be a self-aware kind of evil to understand that you shouldn't frame things as an evil person would. You know? I think this is them being both evil and, like, pretty stupid. Man looks to be in a worse state than my great-grandfather. Damn. And yeah, he probably is. You know, if I'm being real.
Into a sick care system rather than a health care system, and all these people.
Wait, hold up.
And we've turned this country into a sick care system rather than a health care system, and all these people.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the people who are going to change that.
I know you all.
Sick care.
All have a lot of balls in the air, but.
I think they spell it out more plainly later, so I don't think it's worth too much to speculate on that now. But, like, yeah, obviously you care for sick people. People need healthcare when they are sick. So I guess, like, yes? Question mark? I don't know.
I'd love to go down the row and just talk about the big thing that each of you are dealing with, working on. First, FDA. Marty?
Well, first of all...
And, you know, being part of the dark side makes you more unhealthy. Yeah, that's kind of True. I mean, being on the dark side, the evil side, does have devilish power to sustain your life. You know, think Henry Kissinger, right? Man lived to be 100 years old. And then also Donald Trump, like, eats fast food all the time, and he's somehow not dead yet. I don't fucking know. It's like hate provides them with a sense of purpose, which keeps them alive, or some shit like that. Because we do know that, like, it's possible for people to live for a lot longer if they have a sense of purpose. I guess it just also, it functions if that purpose is negative, that you fucking hate a group of people and want to see them suffer. You will live longer to that end until you, like, literally can't do it anymore. I don't know. Willpower can do some weird stuff. Yeah, that's true. Because it's like, it causes you to release certain chemicals and energy and whatever, and, like, can keep you going for longer. Anyways, that was just the lead up. Now they're going to the FDA. Let's hear what the head of the FDA is planning on doing here.
We want to focus the agency on cures and meaningful treatments. In the last administration, #1 priority the commissioner stated was fighting misinformation, and the DEI staff ballooned out. We want to focus on cures and meaningful treatments. We believe in the letter and the spirit of right to try.
So stop funding efforts to fight disinformation, right? Now, I do agree with right to try. I think right to try is a medical thing where if somebody is really in danger of dying, they have the right to opt for some experimental treatment that might be able to save them, but, like, they'd be fucked otherwise, you know? That's one of the ways that experimental treatments get tested, is that if somebody's really desperate and dying, they can be like, all right, let's see if this works, and then they can use data that they get from that to refine the method or make changes, or even sometimes discount a form of treatment that, like, it just seems like it isn't going to pan out and you know, hasn't produced benefits thus far. But notably, people will only get proper treatment if they understand, like, what the treatment options are and agree that, like, yeah, I should get treatment, right? Or something like that, right? There has to be a certain basic assumption that I am unwell and I want to get treatment in order for people to seek out that treatment, in order for an administrative body to try to address people's medical needs. They have to acknowledge that such medical needs exist and are worth addressing. Misinformation has actually thrown that balance off by quite a bit, where, like, because of so much medical misinformation centering around vaccines, a lot of people will not even agree that certain diseases are worth preventing. That's the purpose of fighting misinformation from the perspective of the FDA. But of course, this guy thinks that, like, or this guy is saying, like, yeah, fighting misinformation is basically like when you employ black people, and we hate that.
And there's amazing stuff in the pipeline I've seen. We're talking about new treatments.
I think the same, but there must be consent. Yes, for sure. I think, you know, right to try obviously stipulates that there has to be informed consent. And that's what makes it work.
For stage 4 cancers, for neurodegenerative disorders, for diabetes that we've never seen before. Why does it take 10 years on average for drugs to come to market? Why are we blaming children for being sick and not looking at our food supply? Why are we thinking it's...
Well, first of all, because drug development takes a long fucking time. But again, these guys are anti-science, so...
a willpower problem as we watch half of our nation's children with belly pain or attention deficit disorder on medications. And can we use common sense?
So he's... Wait, let me...
half of our nation's children with plots to come to market. Why are we blaming children for being sick and not looking at our food supply? Why are we thinking it's a willpower problem as we watch half of our nation's children with belly pain or attention deficit disorder on medications? And can we use common sense and gold standard science both? And that's the charge that we have from Secretary Kennedy. You've also...
No. The answer is no. Common sense is... Well, common sense actually used to be a sort of new standard for social science. In fact, the term was coined by Thomas Paine in his pamphlet Common Sense when he was arguing for the merits of democratic Republican government over monarchical government, in which case, like, it became a very progressive phrase of the enlightened liberal thinkers and philosophers. But ever since then, it has devolved to a thought terminating cliche, which it kind of was always meant to be. But it is, taken in its modern form, common sense is a blatantly anti-scientific sentiment. It's an anti-scientific line of thinking. It is just that. A thought-terminating cliche. It's designed to make you not think. So, no, common sense and science do not, in fact, go together. Science can sometimes be kind of counterintuitive, but common sense is intuition by another name. And that's what they want to emphasize here is, fuck modern science, actually. But again, this is like kind of the spin cycle, right? They basically get to, in this Fox News interview, this is a friendly environment, so they get to frame it however they want, which is why they mention, oh yeah, gold standard science. Of course, they probably use the term gold standard because conservatives love talking about gold standard anything, which is pretty funny, but, I don't believe in common sense. Yeah, me neither. That needs to be debunked. I miss
recently, and we covered that extensively. There's this question about vapes coming over from China, and that they're really pervasive in our country, and kids with like video games and getting vapes, and they're
public health, China, video games, vapes. Vapes are actually a public health issue, but it's like kind of complicated. I mean, but you won't hear this guy bringing up cigarettes. They ain't never gonna bring up cigarettes or smut or nicotine gum. See, I know my shit, and these guys also know their shit, which is why they know exactly what not to bring up.
They're dangerous. That falls under FDA.
Yeah, it does. These are devices that are designed to get kids addicted to playing a video game, and there's an inhalation port.
Damn, that's crazy. The reason that our country is so unhealthy is because video games. How do you define lack of health? Like, how do we define unhealthy? Video games. Nice.
In the device, they're showing up at our borders, and what we have been doing is just sending them back, and so the Chinese manufacturers are just sending it to another port. It's called port shopping, and they all get in. They're laughing.
Yeah, that's kind of like how international trade works. You try to find the most expedient route in terms of time and cost and margins. What he's describing here is just a phenomenon that every single country engages in as part of a globalized network of trade. Everybody does this, the United States does this, but because China does it, it has to sound scary. And like, yeah, obviously there are products such as vapes that China exports here that are bad for our health. There are products that we export elsewhere that are bad for people's health. Everybody trades in products that are bad for people's health, but they don't actually want to talk about public health concerns. They want to make this into something where they can justify this being like part of the trade war, right? Like this is just them trying to redirect people's attention as it regards to public health away from public health and towards like the trade war. Okay, because it's supposed to help addicted adults quit smoking or something else. No, so nicotine gum and nicotine patches and stuff are designed to help people quit smoking, but they're also still not good for you. Eventually, you want to get off of those too. And a lot of nicotine products, the stuff that's nominally supposed to help you stop smoking, will also be made by the tobacco industry, right? The big tobacco, like people might remember from the scandal back in the 90s. And these guys are all pro-tobacco because it's a big industry. It's a big business, right? So they'll mention vapes because vapes are basically the new kid on the block, and it's something they can tie to China. But they won't mention cigarettes or smut or chewing gum or patches, And yes, also they hate video games because video games are a form of art and they tend to lean left. These motherfuckers hate Disco Elysium. They hate Metal Gear because they view them as degeneracy or something like that. Yeah, there's actually, it's like a USA deep lore when you get to like tobacco specifically and smoking and shit. Like that's where you start getting American deep lore, and that's why these guys will only bring up vapes ever when they talk about addiction issues that can be addressed legally, because most other like illicit substances, drugs in America are illegal, and they would much rather send in the cops to arrest people. In fact, I think at some point in this, or like at various other points, the Trump administration has talked about restarting the war on drugs. Nicotine just exists in that weird area of it is a drug, it is an addictive drug, it causes public health issues, but it is legal. Yeah, this here's our solution. We beat you to death. Any takers? What do you think? How does that sound?
At us. So that's going to stop in this administration. We're not going to allow these devices to get in. We're going to confiscate them.
Mehmet, there's a lot of focus on Medicaid and Medicare.
Well, given the tariffs they put on China, they might not need to, because China ain't going to be shipping anything here anymore.
And it gets demagogued.
Also, good fucking luck confiscating every single vape that gets shipped from a foreign country in port. That shit is legal. You know, that shit is like a perfectly normal part of like the trade routes. Never mind like the legal justification and whatever. Like, yeah, good fucking luck sending a billion federal enforcers that you don't have to every single port of commercial entry and being like, all right, we need to confiscate all these shipping containers. Like, yeah, you know, the longshoremen are not gonna be happy at you for that one. When I hit a straightaway here, I will.
That you're coming after it, that you're going to kill it, that you're going to cut it. What do you say?
True. Good ending, Captain Planet style. Unity.
And that's why we're all here. We're laser focused on the broader picture, the more holistic picture. In the back of this wonderful theater that we're recording in now, there's a quote.
Oh, there's a theater? I don't know that.
He's named after him. He's a Democrat. And he said it's the moral obligation of government to take care of those of us at the very dawn of our lives, children, at the twilight of our life, the elderly, and those living in the shadows. That's our focus. It's quality of care at all.
Of course, the irony of this, they're just rubbing it in. This is them just kind of like rubbing in how much they hate you and how much manufacturing of consent they can get away with. Because I agree with Hubert Humphrey. Yeah, that is the government's responsibility to take care of the citizenry in matters of public health. It's the job of the government, insofar as we have one, to provide health care at no cost or at as little cost as possible to you know, children, the elderly, people of all ages, you know, which is why countries in Europe that understand this better than America does, or that care about this more than America does, have a socialized healthcare system where, you know, key parts of the industry are nationalized and the government is the single negotiator for drug prices. So they say, here, you're going to sell them to us for cheap and we'll pay you, and then we'll give it to the citizenry for free. You know, and that's how that works. Meanwhile, in America, it's like, you know, the opposite. You know, we will pay you as much as you fucking want, and you know, who the fuck cares if grandma dies? And these guys are all bought by the pharmaceutical industry, obviously, Mehmet Oz included. So the, you know, the irony is palpable, and I have no doubt that that was like intentional, just as kind of like a fuck you.
All levels, and we're working together to make sure that happens in every single scenario that we're looking at. We're increasing payment in Medicaid, putting more money in the Medicaid. Increasing. So the question is, how do you spend that money so efficiently that you stop throwing money at problems, but actually deal with the broader health?
All right, here we go. This is another bit of giving the game away. Yeah, we're spending more money on Medicaid, but we're not throwing money at problems anymore. Anybody with any degree of sociological imagination or sociological education knows that throwing money at problems is how conservatives frame fixing a problem when they don't want the problem to be fixed. You know, money is a measurement by which you can direct goods, services, and people, resources. Money is an abstract concept that we fucking made up to keep track of resources and to justify hierarchy, right? But in this case, it's for keeping track of and measuring the flow of resources. Saying throwing money at a problem means directing resources towards solving that problem, right? If you spend money on something, that means that thing will have more resources coming into it. So if you allocate more money to Medicaid and you throw money at the problem gets fixed, because that money that's getting thrown at the problem is more workers and employees and staff and like resources and communications and research and all this different shit, and just material, like physical medical resources that you can give to people so that they can live more healthily, people who depend on Medicaid. throwing money at a problem fixes the problem. Conservatives simply dumb it down and simplify it to throwing money at the problem so they can make solving problems sound like something that doesn't fix anything, right? It's them trying to justify an evil position by making the good position sound dumb and making their position like, oh yeah, we're not just throwing money at the problem. That would be dumb. We're trying to find a way to efficiently spend this money, by which he probably means fatten the margins of like pharmaceutical companies that they happen to work with, and like, I don't know, probably bring back redlining or something, I don't know, depending on how evil they feel on a given day, right? Seriously, pay attention to how frequently conservatives particularly will say, we don't want to just throw money at the problem, right? Throwing money at the problem is how you fix shit at a societal and systemic level. Because money means, you know, resources, attention, communications, research, and all sorts of shit. Like, think about how much money NASA got in the in the 1960s for the Apollo missions, for the Gemini and Apollo missions during the space race, right? NASA used to get like 20% of all the military funding in the United States. And you know how much we fund our military. That shit is a lot of money. It gave them so much money that in 1961, President Kennedy could announce, we will go to the moon by the end of the decade, and then fucking, like, 5 Mercury, like, a bunch of Mercury missions and, like, 5 Gemini missions and, like, 10 Apollo missions later, Apollo 11 lands on the moon before the end of the decade in 1969. That's what throwing money at the problem does. It makes it so that you achieve your fucking objectives, right? Money can solve problems in more than just one way. Oh yeah, for sure. Because for all the funding that NASA got in directly as a product of that money, that NASA being like such a large recipient of government money also made it a massive subject of discussion. That generated more abstract resources that were beneficial to the space program, such as media attention and household attention. People were paying attention to NASA's space exploration missions and research missions in space, which made it much more possible for them to land a man on the moon, to do the first spacewalk. I think NASA did the first spacewalk in like 1960. It was one of the not Mercury. It was one of the Gemini missions. And I think it was like actually like Michael Collins, one of the astronauts that would be on one of the Apollo crews later, that flew the first spacewalk. They went into like outside of the spacecraft in their spacesuit, which I saw the video of, and it just about made me shit myself. That's what throwing money at something can do. It puts attention on the issue, puts eyeballs on the issue, it shifts the public discourse towards that issue, and it just more directly puts a lot of money, a lot more resources, a lot of research, a lot of people on top of the problem, and that makes it way more likely that that's going to be fixed. So just know the weighted context whenever conservatives say, yeah, we don't want to throw money at this. It means they want the subject to go away, and they want the problem to exist in the background as something that's accepted and never talked about. That's why they say stuff like, yeah, don't throw money at Medicaid. Don't throw money at failing public schools. They want them to just keep failing quietly in the background without ever potentially being fixed.
Needs. Addressing the fundamental reality that 70% of the money that CMS spends, that's what Medicare, Medicaid, the exchanges, CHIP, 70% of the money we spend is on chronic illness. And we're not getting our money's worth. So for folks listening...
See, again, it all has to be about making money to these people. Yeah, you spend a lot of money caring for people with chronic illness. That's part of the basic social contract, motherfucker. Chronic illness means, like, it's hard to actually get over it. You have to live with it. This is useless eaters rhetoric. You know? Why are we spending all this money on sustaining chronically sick people? They should just get better, and we shouldn't spend money on them.
Right now, it's your patriotic duty to be as healthy as you can, and it's our job to help you get there.
And there's the big one that I remember. It's your patriotic duty to be as healthy as you can. No, actually, fuck you. Patriotic duty. Even when they say something like, that's like, yeah, as a matter of like personal decision making, obviously I think you should be as healthy as you can be, right? But they've made it a moral imperative at the level of the state, the nation. It is your patriotic duty. Otherwise, you are a failure to the nation. You know, the state demands it of you. They have to frame this at like, well, have to. They are framing this in terms of like subservience to an authoritarian government, which is, you know, even when they have to try to talk about something good, public health and ensuring public health, they cannot stop themselves from being almost unimaginably evil. Yeah, and nobody wants to be a bitch for the state. And, you know, nobody should be expected to be a bitch for the state, you know? Patriotic duty. Fuck you. Have you considered that? I doubt they care, so.
It's easy to do the right things. At the same time, we've got to make wise decisions because we're stewards who have to protect the money.
Fuck that guy who green shelled me, by the way.
That Hubert Humphrey described. We're stewards who have to protect the money for the population that Hubert Humphrey described.
Fiscal year 2020.
Yeah, see here that like he described the you know, oh yeah, why are we giving all this money to the chronically sick? We have to protect that money from the chronically sick is the implication. Rip my obese epileptic autistic with painful feet brother. Good thing he ain't one of their victims. Yeah, if you have any health conditions, it is not a good time to be living in America. Granted, it hasn't been probably for like forever, but you know. Yeah, like listen to the talking points back to back. Like this is about money making. And then we're spending too much money on the chronically sick. It is your patriotic duty to be healthy for the state. We must protect the state's money from the chronically sick, from the useless eaters. One for one, these are the same rhetorical beats that were hit by the Nazis. They sound way more like new age, dumbass, grifter influencers in saying these talking points, but it's the same
largest
thing.
Percentage of improper payments. 54 billion Medicare, 31 billion Medicaid. Earned income tax credit was 15, SNAP was 10.5. But I mean, you're looking at 5 million in improper payment.
Gotron, you joke, but that's genuinely the direction they're going with this rhetoric. You know? You know, if I were a betting man, I wouldn't take that bet because I think you would win. But, you know, since I'm also, like, invested in doing political analysis, I would say I agree, and I'll take that bet so I hope that I, like, lose the bet. Fucking, I don't know. Yeah, and the worst part about this is that in the future, people are going to say, like, yeah, nobody knew this could happen. You were like, motherfucker, we all saw it coming from a mile away. And they'll be like, nuh-uh. Although, I think that's mostly an America thing. I think in, it seems like there are other places in the world that have, like, slightly better education systems that seem to remember the trends leading up to fascist dictatorship and genocide a little bit better than America has managed. That's not a high bar, though, and there's still a lot of problems with how easily the right-wing populists have regained power in Europe as well, you know? I can't believe I didn't hit any of those. I can't believe I didn't get hit by that. Ooh. I like that. And I have to use it. Nice. Not by a lot, but clear difference for sure. Yeah.
Billion.
That's an underestimate.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We have a war room now.
And then, of course, like I said, since it's a friendly environment, Fox News tees up that figure. I don't even know how much, like, Fox News has just lied with the numbers that they've used before. These are the money that they say are improper payments, which I don't think I believe. Not fully anyways. But clearly what they're doing is they're framing this as, look at how much of this money has been drained by the useless eaters suckling on the teat of the state or something like that. You know? He's sort of like, They're doing the 1-2 punch.
Million in improper payments.
With this.
A billion, and that's an underestimate.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We have a war room now, a war room to fight back against adversaries. And these aren't just small-time players. These are foreign governments.
Of course, war, adversaries, foreign governments.
Organized crime. And why are they coming after us? Because our budget is nearly
It always has to be an external threat. It can't ever be like, you know, and I say external. It has to always be something external to the state because fascists are bitches for the state. You know, they're all bottoms and they imagine the state is a big sexy top that's gonna fuck them raw for like hours. The problem is that's not actually what the state is, and they're just evil. And even me characterizing them as really horny bottoms that are just horny for the state is like being really charitable because they also delight in seeing other people suffer. I am the smartest bottom. I believe you. World's #1 bottom.
The monies that are spent,
It's like a mug, the world's #1 dad.
Out of our pocketbooks, but the direct budget just for CMS is $1.75 trillion. That's twice the defense budget. So there's a big target on our back, and folks are coming after it. And they're the kinds of things that should make you mad. It's USAID on steroids, frankly. But I'll give you a couple examples.
I love that he's like, this is how bad it is. Remember USAID that like did some good stuff sometimes? Yeah, it's that bad on steroids. I would get that mug if I weren't living with my dad. Damn. I would too. If I saw that, I would get that mug. Because it'd be funny. Yeah, #1 bottom. I feel like that has to exist somewhere. Anyways, look, again, it like, they're all framing it for like, foreign governments and shit. It can never be like there's a systemic problem internally because they love all the fucking hierarchical systems that exist at a domestic level and whatever, you know. I don't know if it does. If I look it up because the LGBTQ community is funny. That's true.
Almost 250,000 Americans found out by surprise because they get
Here, let's
twice the defense budget. So there's a big target on our back, and folks are coming after it. And they're the kinds of things that should make you mad. It's USAID.
This is one thing I wanted to point out. I kind of got distracted by him saying USAID on steroids. USAID did some bad stuff, but it was also like did comparatively very good stuff because in propagating soft power, you're not propagating hard power. Yeah, it is the most direct that they've said, like, you should be mad about this. Like, you know, usually they'll talk about things in a very indignant tone, right? Usually the way that consent manufacturing happens with Fox News and with a lot of right-wing media outlets is that they will stop just short of saying, you should be angry about this. You know, a lot of the times they'll try to be more coy than that. They'll try to be like, this is kind of messed up. This, you know, this isn't great, you know, like, and they'll talk about it. They'll say like factual information or, you know, skewed factual information, and they'll use like an indignant tone and they'll say like, wow, that's incredible. And stuff like that. But yeah, it I don't know if it's refreshing or kind of blackpilling that Dr. Oz here, Mehmet Oz, is just coming out and saying, you should be mad at what we are describing. We are describing the useless eaters suckling off the teat of the state. The state's assets must be protected from the chronically sick. We need to stop spending so much money on the chronically sick, just like we also needed to stop spending money on foreign aid, foreign humanitarian aid. You should be angry, you know? It's pretty, like, blunt. It's surprisingly blunt, I would say, insofar as propaganda, especially because it seems like in some ways conservatives have started, like, have stopped putting so much effort into their propaganda because it seems like the liberals just aren't really fighting back in terms of their propaganda outlets, you know?
Steroids, frankly. I'll give you a couple examples. Almost 250,000 Americans found out by surprise because they got an IRS notice that they had gotten the Affordable Care Act insurance without knowing it. Why would you sign someone up without telling them they have insurance? Because brokers can steal the money. We have hundreds of millions of dollars spent on housekeeping. We have tens of millions of dollars spent on public unions getting free child.
Oh no, the horror. Public money is getting spent on unions. Guys, it might be Jover. They're spending government money on unions. No, I mean, you know, with respect to the Affordable Care Act insurance, I don't know if that was actually happening. Again, I just don't trust these fuckers, so. But yeah, brokers do suck, and I hate them. Like, insurance brokers. Just because they're part of the, like, insurance industry. But this guy loves the insurance industry. Remember, they were just talking about how do we make this a money-making operation, so.
Or student tuition or DEI programs.
Oh no, the horror. The government is spending money on student tuition. God fucking forbid the government spend money on helping students and workers. And mind you, this is them with all the room in the world to spin this to sound good. This is what they think sounds good about what they're talking about.
Have an obligation, all of us do, to protect the people that Humphrey was speaking about. And if we're not going to protect the most vulnerable, that's who they're stealing money from, then we're not doing our job. So we're going after, there's a new sheriff in town, and we're coming after folks in a very big way.
NIH, always looking to the next thing, but there are people concerned that funding is drying
Autocorrect
up
is evil, it seems. Unfortunately.
FDA is
we've been
fair,
betrayed.
But there's $33.3 billion cut from HHS, $18 billion from NIH,
God, look at that.
$674 million from
NIH.
CMS.
Guys, that's the,
Does that
like...
affect you, and how do you portray that about what NIH is doing?
I mean, I think the
What's
key
happening?
fact I look at.
Sorry, I need to stand still mini turbo for a little bit so I could pause the video. Yeah, how it's like they're advertising like, yeah, we're cutting a bunch of money from the NIH. That's a medical research body. National Institutes of Health. That does all this fucking research. You know how like conservatives made fun of the research that NIH was doing because they have no fucking idea what research is or why it happens, right? Even the stuff like, oh yeah, the shrimp on a treadmill, the reason that they did that, and that was super cheap, by the way, it cost like $1,000 to do that research. The reason that you would put a shrimp on a treadmill is to sort of gauge the health impacts of the environment that a shrimp lives in, so that you can measure you can kind of extrapolate that outward to see what the environmental effects are on certain bodies of water. For example, there are saltwater shrimp, there are freshwater shrimp, there are brackish shrimp that live in different types of water. Putting any given one of those shrimp on a treadmill to compare against like a healthy control will show you how healthy that shrimp is and if it's in the correct environment. And you can use that to identify if something is wrong there and if you need to do something about the environment there. All that for just $1,000. You can answer a really fucking important question that could have massive implications for the food supply, basically for the entire eastern and western seaboard, if they rely like on seafood or food that can be found in the water, right? For $1,000, and the government just cut $600 billion or something like that. How much was it from the National Institutes of Health? These people are anti-health. What they like is the aesthetics of health. They're trying to cultivate, this is like what I said with RFK Jr. talking about autistic kids. They're trying to cultivate the Ubermensch by killing everybody that is an Untermensch. And in order to do that, you have to actually gut public health infrastructure. You know, you have to get rid of all these research things so that, okay, no, it was 18 billion from the NIH. It was 670 billion from Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah, scientists must be fucking devastated by seeing this shit. You know? Ubermensch reference? Yeah, true. Like, that's the only reason to do anything like this, and that's the only thing that it accomplishes, is killing more people, weeding out the weak so you can cultivate the strong. The strong being people who are bitches for the state and do not drain resources, who are not the useless eaters who, I don't know, need medicine. You know?
174 million from C. Does that affect you, and how do you...
Oh, million, not billion. My B. I misread that M as a B. from Medicare and Medicaid.
You portray that about what NIH is doing.
I mean, I think the key fact I look at for NIH is that the mission of the NIH is supposed to do research that improves the health and longevity of the American people. And since
Which it was
we've seen
doing.
no increase in life expectancy in this country. In that sense, the NIH has not
I
done
wonder why.
its mission over the last dozen years.
Ah, classic. The classic redirection of blame the scientists and the academic community. Caterpillar mustache? Yes, that's true. You do have to have a caterpillar mustache in order to be considered the Ubermensch. This is a requirement. Meanwhile, handlebar mustache chads are unfortunately disqualified. Just another point against these guys. They fucking hate you for having a cool mustache. They want you to have a caterpillar mustache. Yeah, of course, like, this guy was like, oh, well, you know, the life expectancy hasn't increased, so obviously the researchers aren't doing their jobs. No, what's happening there, like, this is a classic redirect from the issue being that medicine is unaffordable in the United States. We have, like, for the longest time, the United States was known for having some of the most advanced medical tech in the world. It was just, the problem was just that nobody was allowed to use it because they didn't have enough money, you know? Like, nobody was allowed to benefit from the really, really advanced medical care that was available in the United States because of how much money it costs. And that is an issue of class. That is an issue of class conflict where the pharmaceutical industry is a money-making operation, which these guys have voiced support for. How do we make this, you know, make as much money as possible from this public health initiative, you know? And they're like, well, clearly it can't be that, right? You know, because that's our bottom line. That's true. If we get rid of the capital class, you know, life expectancy is going to start going up. You know, I think everybody wins from that. In fact, you know, we see that there are some European countries that have, like, comparatively are not as technologically advanced at the peak of their development as the United States has been. But because their medical care is much more accessible to regular people, it is free at the point of service. You will never encounter issues with, like, going into medical debt. Life expectancies in Europe are longer because they don't, you know, gatekeep medical care, and they also don't pump their food full of bullshit, which is something that these guys will potentially acknowledge, but they won't, like, actually change that because they're also in bed with the agricultural industry. They'll just be like, yeah, we need to stop putting autism chemicals in the food and then keep everything exactly the same, except, like, remove all the FDA testing parameters and regulations and shit so that your food, in addition to having high fructose corn syrup in it, also has worms in it. Hello, Void, yes, welcome back. Spain be like, yeah, that's true. People in Spain are living it up. Meanwhile, we're living in Spain without the S.
And in fact, NIH was involved in supporting research that may have actually led to the pandemic that we all just went through. So we have...
yes, this is... Yeah, okay. The fun, like, conspiracy about the pandemic. These institutions that do good things are actually conspiring to make you sick and to destroy the state. Anything that's good, oh yeah, that actually supports the useless eaters and is an affront to the state. Yeah, dude, I'm so tired of the fucking gain of function. To be honest, it's been a while since I heard it, because they seem to usually go more for the, like, oh yeah, it was China that did it, actually. But I guess, you know, it's convenient for them to lump in the National Institutes of Health for this, too. Start using this here.
This executive order the other day in the Oval Office. What does that mean to the average person? You can stop it on the U.S. side, nice. But obviously it's happening around the world.
The U.S. is the primary state that sets the example for how to do this kind of work around the world. When the U.S. says, look, we're not going to allow scientists to play God, take viruses with cockamamie justifications, make them more transmissible, more deadly, that doesn't protect us against anybody, and it causes tremendous risk. And what the president did by signing this order is he said no more. We're not going to have another lab-generated pandemic on my watch.
Again, there's nothing really. There's nothing really to say about this. This has been debunked several times. You know, you're one to talk. Yeah, I mean, like, it's the fucking gain of function conspiracy theory. Does this research exist as a thing? Yeah. But, like, there's no evidence that gain of function research was responsible for the pandemic. Not as far as I know, anyway. It's just, like, they can't fathom the concept of it being an accident. Which, by all indications, it was. You know? Like, yeah, people do research on diseases, so they have to have strains of those diseases in a controlled environment to see, like, you know, how they grow, change, and react to stimuli. If it gets leaked, that's pretty damn bad. And I guarantee you, those scientists in China were probably, like, even before they probably got executed by the state, they were probably like, holy fuck, this is so bad. Yeah, this is just, like, peasant brain. This is conspiracism brain.
Pulled. She's heading here to the HHS. What happened with all that?
Yeah, the void, you're right. I mean, like, you know, and this happened earlier where they were talking about vapes being, like, a Chinese attack on American health, and also kids are addicted to video games. They actually put both of those in the same sentence. You know? Scares me that my dad thinks these people are smart. They're smart enough to know how to appear smart to people that watch TV. Because this is saturating the airwaves. Stuff like this saturates the airwaves. Fox News set a trend of dishonest punditry, where because these guys are dressed in formal wear, have a sort of more or less regal looking appearance, and likely have some sort of education, they know how to sound smart and be authoritative when they say stuff, even when they make shit up. And the average person doesn't have enough media literacy to discern that, oh, they're just making shit up. Because at the end of the day, America is such an isolated country at a social level. Like, people are so isolated from the outside because of a number of factors that people will watch Fox News and that will genuinely be their only reference for what the world is like. You know, that's like why your like really problematic racist grandpa believes in Fox News, because that's the only consistent thing that gives them any information. You know? Like, even more consistent than having their family around. Fox News is on all day, every day. Does that make sense? You know, it's a critical part of manufacturing consent. A lot of the reason that this works is because of how socially disconnected everything is, right? It is legitimately part of the reason that European media, even the right-wing stuff, tends to actually be less insane and more grounded. You know? Like, CNN is even more insane than most European media, even the ones that aren't necessarily friendly to leftists. Yeah, when they're not contested, they can just spit bullshit. And they're trained to do that, like, nonstop. And when they have, like, a different guest on, they can actually just, like, cut away at the last minute.
What happened with her withdrawal? We talked to Dr. Neshwad. We're going to put her at a very good place here at HHS. Casey Means, we felt, was the best person to really bring the vision of MAHA to the American public.
Jesus, Gotron, that's grim.
Capacity to articulate
and I'm sorry.
She's written a book that really mobilized, galvanized the movement. She is an extraordinary. She is excellence in everything that she's ever endeavored.
Obviously, she's come under her own criticism about some of the things she's advocated.
Oh yeah, this was
residency, and she does.
This was the crank, like, health influencer that they nominated to be Surgeon General. I think that lady. I don't have my finger on the arrow key right now, but. She's just like a generic blonde lady fucking looking person. Yeah, as they mentioned, you know, controversial, and that's them whitewashing her, so, you know, it's actually considerably worse than that, and, You know, she didn't complete her residency. She is not a doctor, in fact. She's just a like social media grifter. And they were like, she would make a great Surgeon General. And you know, of course, as is the case with every like health-centric social media grifter, it's just that they hate vaccines and autistic people. Like that's it. Oh, okay, Blue Shell. Obama and Harris are completely silent throughout this entire year. Yeah, so I've noticed indeed. You know, the Democratic Party does not have the repertoire or willingness to engage in the level of media messaging and narrative crafting that the Republicans do, because to them there can be no narrative. It's the end of history. You know? The American left, though, like, the American left doesn't really have enough of a presence to be especially loud, right? Like, Kamala Harris and Barack Obama, I do not consider to be part of the American left. They are neoliberals. Their platform is that things should remain the same, you know? The American left, I think, begins with people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and, like, the progressive members of Congress and stuff, those kinds of people. And they, for what little resources they have, they've actually been quite loud. The problem is there's this giant institutional Snorlax in the way that is the Democratic Party. Except unlike Snorlax, they're actually actively committed to preventing people from passing, rather than Snorlax who's just taking a nice nap. If I didn't know anything about politics, someone told me someone killed Obama after this presidency, I'd probably believe it. Yeah, like, it genuinely, like, as silent as a mouse.
Doesn't currently have an active medical license, but that's not.
She was the very top of her medical.
And now they're trying to get ahead of the, like, yeah, and I have to specify, we love Snorlax. He is friend-shaped. You know, it's just that, you know, it's kind of that's the comparison at hand, right? This is, like, completely inert. And, but like I was saying, I love that they're trying to get ahead of the, like, she's not a doctor and doesn't have a medical license. Them being like, yeah, but, I mean, you know, she's really smart. She was the top of her class. Like, motherfucker, that doesn't make her have any more of a medical license than she doesn't.
Medical class at Stanford. She's during her residency, she won every award that she could win. She walked away from traditional medicine.
Me when I'm lying?
She was not curing patients. She couldn't get anybody within her profession to look at the nutrition contributions to illness. And she said, if we're really going to heal people, if we're healers, we can't just be making our life about building new procedures. We actually have to figure out new approaches to medicine. And that's the kind of leadership that she's going to bring to our country.
Oh, and remember, when he says this, RFK Jr. doesn't believe in germ theory. He says he believes in miasmatic theory of medicine, which would be humor imbalances, but he's actually incorrect on describing his own beliefs. He believes in the terrain theory of medicine. Like, legitimately, he does not believe in modern science, and he picked somebody for Surgeon General specifically because they also do not believe in modern science. You know, they believe in either, from what it sounds like, either terrain theory like he does or miasmatic theory like the medieval plague doctors did. You know, where they would say, oh, I know what's wrong with you. You have an imbalance of red bile, and they would just drain your blood until you died. You know? And I was going to say something else, too. Oh, yeah. And you can kind of hear that in their rejection of medical treatment as a concept for chronic issues. Like, oh, you have chronic health issues? Just fucking eat healthier, idiot. Don't, like, don't ask for medical treatment of any kind. You don't need medical treatment. You need to, you know, eat a salad. Or, like, die, I guess, if you were already, like, eating fine. Yeah, they're legitimately, you know, how there are like anime villains that are like the strong exist to rule the weak and the weak are subservient to the strong, whatever. Like legitimately parody shit. You could watch Resident Evil fucking cutscenes. You could play Resident Evil and it basically these people are Albert Wesker. You know? The weak exist to serve the strong. Type shit. You know? And ultimately, they're just self-interested. They have a lot of power. They have a lot of, you know, soft power. But, like, these people don't believe a fucking word they're saying. I didn't realize people actually believe that. I guess artists know more than me. Yeah, I mean, like, some artists, artists tend to be pretty left-wing, so they probably picked up on that stuff faster than the average person. But also, I feel like sometimes that stuff is written just as goofy, over-the-top villainy. That's like, oh yeah, obviously this is evil, right? But in accidentally, like, in trying to write a character that is the most evil, unrealistic shit they could come up with, they accidentally capture a real type of person that actually just believes evil things and hates everyone. You know? Like, you could take the plot of Resident Evil 5 and, like, Wesker wanting to create this new genetically engineered virus so that he can create a new race of superhumans that he can rule over, and it's legitimately, like, not that far from what any of these guys believe. You know? Where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill billions because, like, we need a new order of humanity or something like that, and I will be the Messiah. You know, the weak exists to serve the strong, and we must purge the weak so that the strong may, like, I don't know, fucking roam free after this. Like, and it's not even as funny and entertaining as Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear. Like, he's at least doing it not so he can be the ruler of this new perfect world, but just, like, for the love of the game, right? Ooh. Oh, that guy dodged. I'm convinced every type of person is, in fiction is realistic, no matter how stupid. Oh, yeah. Like, as more time goes on, you know, like I said, it's, like, even the most evil thing you can imagine, clearly nobody's just like this, right? Is accidentally just a real kind of person. Ooh. No, hit the fucking red shell. Damn. Fourth place. How do conservatives play video games without thinking? I mean, to them, video games are just basically like goon fuel. You know, if you hear the shit that conservatives say about video games that they play or pay attention to, it's all gooner shit.
Last thing on this, your former running mate weighed in to...
Anyways, back to these guys. What were they talking about? This lady doesn't have a medical license, didn't finish her residency, pushes quack, like, air quotes, medicine that's actually, like, eat a salad fatty, but, like, filled with so much spite that you would think that, like, she probably just wants you to die or something like that and doesn't believe in germ theory. Okay, back to this.
Today, saying that she wasn't happy about this and said that you're somehow being controlled. Your decisions are being controlled. That's what she...
I don't know if K. Jr. very clearly lied to me or what's going on. It's been clear in recent conversations he's reporting someone regularly is controlling his decisions, and it isn't President Trump. It's probably somebody in the pharmaceutical industry. I don't know.
She posted.
Listen, you guys sitting here.
I don't even know who Nicole Shanahan is.
COVID.
Yeah, right.
These people are, you know, you've got the entire leadership of this agency is renegades who are juggernauts against convention and who are trying to look for truth no matter what the cost.
So nobody's controlling your
Casey
decisions.
is among those.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox.
No, fuck you. I must say, though, it is really funny hearing Sean fucking Hannity giving the, like, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's like bro's turning into a fucking YouTuber. That shit just tickles me pink whenever I see, like, a conventional media figure, particularly that's, like, really conservative, that I know is already just a content-pilled grifter. And at the end of the Fox News video where they're talking about, like, the strong exist to rule over the weak and steward the interests of the nation, which must be protected from the weak and the useless eaters. And then Sean Hannity comes up and is like, hey guys, nice segment. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can get more content every day. Like, great, thank you, I guess. I don't know, maybe that shit is just unreasonably funny to me, but it is funny to me. Funny thing is, even conservative porn is boring. Yeah, it is. You know, NSFW warning incoming, obviously. I'm talking about porn. But, like, if you can very easily identify the kind of porn that was either drawn by conservatives or that conservatives would be into by the fact that, like, guys are just fucking Dorito chips. They're, like, giant triangles with no legs. And then, like, women are like, you drew a thin rectangle and then you gave them massive tits and ass or something. And it's like, damn, that's kind of boring. And also, this isn't like even remotely going to be interesting from a writing or artistic perspective, right? And then with like, and then of course the other like type of porn that conservatives draw is just cuckold shit, right? Where's the react, Annie? There we go. And, like, I'd rather watch something where there's, like, different kinds of, watch or read something where there's, like, different kinds of, people and body types and whatever, and where there's enough context and build-up to make the sex really, really hot when it happens, right? Like, some of the best, erotic manga and comics I've read have also, like, a pretty good story, basically weaving all of the sexual relationships and tension together so you're really, really, like, into it the whole time, right? Yeah, the best kind of porn also has a plot. People aren't ready for that one. Because the plot makes the sex hotter. And yeah, I avoid, like, all the cuckold shit is just a blight. Like, I look at, like, as you're scrolling through the comics or whatever, trying to find one, and, like, you see one that's obviously, like, some cuck shit, it, like, makes me actually uncomfortable. It's like, Jesus. It is truly, it is really weird. Not necessarily that conservatives think a lot about dick, or even about, like, well, it is a little bit weird that they constantly think about big black cock. But it is especially weird that they can't, like, own up to being into that. To being into, like, men. Because they clearly are, right? I don't know. They fucking let that shit dictate so much of their politics. There's so, like, look, forgive me for turning into fucking Sigmund Freud over here, but, like, there is so much psychosexual tension and unresolved issues in their head that leads them to being, like, so obsessed with the theoretical, virile, sexually aggressive black man that's, like, cucking them or something like that. Never mind the fact that that isn't happening because none of those fuckers have a girlfriend. Ow. Did that might have been my fake item box. Might have been, hoisted by my own petard there. Look at this rainbow, then look at this pile of dirt. Yeah, it is kind of crazy by comparison. That kind of worked. True. That's so true. Almost done with this here. But yeah, sorry, I was talking about, talk a little bit about porn, because everything is psychosexual with these people. I mean, look, me talking about the difference between, porn made by conservatives and porn made by, like, woke lefties is actually kind of germane to that Fox News video segment, because they talk in very thinly veiled terms about being subservient to the state, which always has a sexual dimension to it, right? You know, especially when you couple it with that useless eaters rhetoric and patriotic duty. It's all like you're a bitch for the state. You know, the people who buy into that rhetoric and the people who peddle it as well. They are bitches to the state, and they want you to be a bitch to the state as well. So to that end, they will commit unthinkable crimes, unspeakable crimes, in fact, and life will be worse for everybody. And that's bad, actually, I think. You know, very bold take from yours truly. So, you know, Fox News doing Fox News things, I guess. So people are like, Palpatine's such a bad villain. Anyway, I'm going to support Donald Trump. Fucking true. Dude, you know what's funny is that Palpatine actually mirrors Donald Trump in a very interesting kind of way, where he, like, Palpatine is interested in the accumulation of power, right? In Star Wars. You read Star Wars or you watch Star Wars, whatever, and it's clear that Palpatine has, like, these political desires and machinations and whatever. But really, like, you get down to it, and a lot of that is just, it's not, like, necessarily motivated by anything larger than the fact that he's just a curmudgeonly old man that wants to live by himself and never have to talk to anybody. You know? Which is surprisingly reminiscent of Donald Trump. You know? Like, we tend to think of Palpatine as, like, Space Hitler and whatever, right? But Palpatine doesn't actually believe in all these lofty, like, political concepts, the race, the nation, the state. Like, he believes in the state, but only insofar as he gets to be a secluded old man and just live by himself, right? Yeah, he gets killed by the only person he ever, like, considered a friend, which is really funny. And then conservatives see that, like, wow, he's so evil and he hates everyone. Now it is time for me to cast my ballot for Donald J. Trump at the ballot box. Like, brother. What manufacturing consent does to a motherfucker. Oops. My drift didn't come out first thing. And, you know, Palpatine and Trump, along those lines, this is kind of me segueing into another thing that I might want to talk a little bit about. It seems like, you know how there are some political operatives and people of renown like Hitler, like anybody with any given person within, like, the far-right coalition that are sort of, like, fascist first, and they use capitalism as a vehicle for the interests of fascism, their ideological fascism, right? Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon are both that kind of person, I believe. You know, where they will do things at times that are not necessarily good for business, that aren't necessarily optimal or good for, you know, all the crypto grifters that just want to keep making money at the top, right? They might step on their toes every now and again, but to them, it's all to the end of creating basically an ethno-state where they kill all the brown people or something like that, right? And, you know, women are subservient and in the home and whatever, and something child sex slaves something, because that's where all fascist ideology leads, right? But then you have people like Donald Trump, and Scott Besson, I believe, is another one of these people, and Howard Lutnick. These are some of the high-ranking admin officials. And then I will also liken them to Palpatine, who are mostly just ideologically about themselves. They are ideologically, I guess, in Trump's case and the, you know, U.S.'s case, ideologically capitalist, and they will use fascism sort of as a convenient vehicle for those interests to be met eventually. But they will do things that don't always sit up perfectly well with the fascists. Remember the fight that Trump and Elon had with the rest of MAGA and the Republicans about H-1B visa holders, where a lot of the more establishment figures, Trump included, and as well as Elon Musk, were like, oh, well, we hate immigration as much as the next guy, but obviously we got to keep the H-1B visa holders. Those are cheap labor for us, right? That's their interest superseding the interests of fascism, you know? Whereas the rest of the right wing were ideologically incoherent, of course, but like fascist before capitalist. And they were like, no, even the H-1B visa holders have to go because they're dirty and stinky. You know? And Palpatine strikes me as that same kind of person, where he is ideologically for himself, his own wealth and like position, basically, where he's just this old, like grumpy old man, extremely unpleasant old man who doesn't want to talk to anybody. He wants to have all the money so he can live alone and like don't have to worry about it, you know. That kind of sets them apart. And I'm interested today in talking a little bit about, now that I've talked about Palpatine, I'm interested in talking about one of the individuals I mentioned who is first and foremost an ideological fascist and will sort of go along to get along with capitalists because it serves their interests, right? Like fascism first, and they use capitalism as like a convenient excuse. And that is Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller has had a very active role in the Trump administration lately, which is interesting and also quite like disconcerting because of the direction it seems like he wants to take the administration, sort of delivering on more of the straightforwardly anti-immigration stuff on the the concentration camps, the enabling of ICE, etc. And recently, Miller said that the government is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Let me look this up. Great, thanks for the framing, CNN. Trump involved in discussions over suspending habeas corpus, sources say. The clip from Stephen Miller has been going around where basically they asked him a bunch of questions about softball questions, of course, because it's American media. And he said, like, we're actively looking at suspending habeas corpus, basically. A thing that is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. They're beyond the point of, arguing that the Constitution should be followed. They're basically on the fuck you level, you know? I don't think Trump cares about fascism. I think he just wants to be popular in a weird way. Yeah, in that way, like, he's ideologically about him and what he wants. And, like, sure, he'll do the fascism because it, like, helps him with that in a way, you know? Like, Trump is not authentically, like, hateful of queer people, but he'll, like, and he's admitted this, he just does it because it, like, gets him all the applause at his rallies, you know? And he loves that shit. He eats that shit up. But meanwhile, Stephen Miller is in it for the love of the game. He is, like, extremely soy precisely because he's willing to look like a fucking sniveling, dishonest bitch while going to bat for his positions, you know? It's a different kind of fascist dishonesty where there is an underlying end objective, but it, you know, he understands that, like, everybody hates him and nobody actually, like everybody's life would get worse from the realization of such a fascist repertoire. So he just kind of, like, lies constantly. Let's just get rid of these. Oh, I didn't think that would hit him, and I'm somehow in first. It's like the greatest enemies are lonely people. Yes, now you're getting it. Yeah, Stephen Miller is like like honest to God incel that just works in the American government. Also, how did that red shell not hit a wall? Greatest red shell of all time. Don't. And, you know, they hate you. They hate you. They want you dead. This could be, like, terrible. Sent something in content suggestions due to a motion with 150,000 signatures against Minister of Asylum and Migration. Minister role which didn't exist before the new government. Ah, thank you. Can you imagine if the Republicans try to pass the bill for state-mandated GF? I was actually on the subject of a bill potentially being passed. I had seen some hubbub about this on social media, and I made a comment about it. And I kind of wanted to talk about that. Which is, you know, don't discount. I don't know for sure whether it's going to happen or not, right? Whether or not there's going to be like a bill that suspends habeas corpus, or if they just kind of cobble something together with executive functions that ultimately amounts to suspending habeas corpus, or they don't even do anything official and they just kind of like use ICE as the Gestapo as they have been, because ICE is literally just American Gestapo, and like they sort of just don't even acknowledge that you still have that right, so they just kind of circumvent it entirely. Aaron Rupar, known Democratic Party shill, by the way. I do not like this man. Posted a clip from Senator Amy Klobuchar. Everybody's fucking, I would say least favorite centrist, but like least relevant centrist is more like it. Like, I feel like people are less likely to vitriolically despise Amy Klobuchar than they are to hear the name and be like, literally who? But, you know, the Democratic Party fucking loves her almost as much as they love Alyssa Slotkin, who is a fucking Bush-era Republican. Anyways, Klobuchar on Stephen Miller saying the administration is considering suspending habeas corpus. He's doing it because they don't want to focus on what's really in front of them, and that they've created havoc in our economy. No, they're not going to reverse habeas corpus in the Congress, right? Which is like fridge temperature IQ ass take. No, they're not doing it to distract from, like, for Trump and some other people in the admin, maybe it could serve as a distraction for them. But no, first and foremost, Stephen Miller is doing this for the love of the game. He genuinely doesn't want you to have rights, you know? For Stephen Miller, the tariffs are the distraction. This is the fucking, like, main event, right? Like, the tariffs only are good for Stephen Miller insofar as they serve to benefit the state over the people. You know? Same thing with this. And of course I responded, words said moments before several Democrats vote with Republicans on a bipartisan bill in Congress to suspend habeas corpus. Because I don't believe her. I don't believe any of these Democrats when they say that they oppose this. Except for, I don't know, Bernie Sanders, like the few progressives that are still like prominent in the media cycle, much to the chagrin of the broader Democratic Party, right? Like, in fact, if anything, I feel like Amy Klobuchar might be one of the people who would be more willing to cave on this, right? It just it speaks to what a fucking shit-ass position we're in, what a shit-ass party the Democrats are, that the Republicans are able to say any of this. And the Democrats are engaging with them on their terms. They're like, that's actually a distraction, so don't talk about it. And they won't be able to do it anyways, you know? Like, never mind them saying anything that they're going to do to just, like, absolutely destroy whatever this administration is doing. Like, yeah, we're going to fucking, not only are we going to sue them, we're going to, like, prosecute them. We're going to start arresting the rank and file of them. We're going to start drafting up a plan to dismantle ICE and the DHS. No, of course they're not going to do that. Yeah, they gave up what little power they had. It would not, in even the most remote sense, surprise me if they rolled over on this too. Yeah, and they, like, Democrats are probably, it sounds insane to say this, but legitimately, Democratic politicians especially are probably less politically literate than the average American. Think about how fucking stupid the average American is, if you believe what I have to say, right? Like, this, you know, this is me being really uncharitable to the average American too, that I'll just openly say, like, they're fucking dumb. Democratic lawmakers are even dumber than that. And so are most Republican lawmakers, mind you. But sometimes Republicans do actually reward people for being good at politically maneuvering and like having a strategy to meet their political objectives, concrete objectives that they have set out beforehand. That's one of the only reasons that Project 2025 was so dangerous, right? The reason it was dangerous wasn't because it was a roadmap for what the next administration wanted to accomplish. It was dangerous because of the contents of that roadmap. It was dangerous because of what they wanted to accomplish, not because they drafted up a roadmap to do it, right? Plenty of political parties in other countries have political platforms that they spend a considerable amount of time building up a shadow cabinet, drafting up policy proposals before they even get into power, so that on day one, they can hit the ground running and start being like, yes, we're doing what you voted for us to do. We're doing this. I don't know, like for one of the left parties, we are reinvesting in public transit. We're adding more affordable housing here. We're supporting unions, etc., you know? Like it's pretty basic shit. But the Republicans do that. They are a coherent enough political bloc to do that, and Democrats aren't. The Democrats literally do not have a plan. And that's what I think they emphasized about Project 2025. A lot of them didn't really emphasize that this was this like massive push towards fascism and like they hate you, they want to take away all your rights, they want to hollow out America and like deliver it to the capital class, because they're also in bed with the capital class. No, what they highlighted was that it was this non-specifically sinister plan, a political plan, you know? It kind of goes to show how much their ideological objection is just to the concept of doing anything. Yeah, they don't want to. They don't want to make like attack the Nazis for being Nazis, because that would be rude and it might put the Nazis on defense. And think of what they might do to us, how they might be mean to us if we attack them. Never mind the fact that the Nazis are already doing like literally everything that they theoretically could or would do. Like, dog, if they could have done it, they would have already, and probably are doing it right now, you know? Like, this is one of those things where I don't even fucking want to entertain the argument, you know? And it's just not worth it to. And of course, the suspension of habeas corpus also enables the unitary executive theory, because habeas corpus is a legal right guaranteed to people, and it is exercised by way of the judiciary. Habeas corpus is just due process. It is the part of the Constitution that allows you to have legally actionable rights as represented by, like, a lawyer in court. If you don't have habeas corpus, the executive branch can do whatever the fuck they want to you. And that's unitary executive theory. The executive has all the power, the president has all the power, and the judiciary and Congress just exist to be rubber stamps on anything that the president does to give a veneer of legitimacy. You know? Whenever someone says, I have rights, gonna make a Bob saying, no, you don't, in their head. Yeah. Yeah, basically. And look, like I said, you know, going back to it, I don't know whether the Democrats are actually going to, like, cave on this, or even if a bill's going to be brought to Congress. They might not even need that much, because Congress is already irrelevant anyways. But either way, if the Democrats are like, yeah, we don't like this, I don't believe them. Because if they actually didn't like this, then that would insinuate that they maybe care enough to do something about it. And we know they don't. You know? By the time we're all being sent to the death camps, the liberals will all already be dead from malfunction, trying to understand how this happened. Yeah. Because they're historically fucking illiterate. I guess that, you know, that's part of them being less politically literate than the average American, is that the average American, like, you ask the average American about Gilmar Abrego Garcia, and they'll be like, yeah, that's fucked up. Government just disappeared a guy that had committed no crime and was living here legally and, like, literally had never done anything wrong. If they can do it to him, they can do it to all of us, and they probably will start doing it to all of us. And this is how the fucking death camps happen, you know? Meanwhile, Democrats are like, that wasn't legal, actually, and the Supreme Court said you have to bring him back, so we are calling on the administration to follow the Constitution. Still waiting for the day y'all get rid of the two-party system? Me too, brother. Me too. I understand why people hate teachers' pets. Yeah. Yeah, I think it, like, speaks to a lack of imagination, right? Item? Yes. Oh, okay. Try to drift a little tighter, but fuck you! The curse of being stream sniped, I guess. Let me go for... Well, alright. Or Garlic Rat could take both those boxes. Politics is just school relations? True. Yeah, kind of. I know where I want to use this. And it is right here. How to steal, possibly, not first place. I'm not going to get first, but, you know. Damn. I actually used it a little too late. That's my beef. Yeah, what's the phrase? All politics is sex and all sex is politics. That's why, by the way, it is so easy to tell the political orientation of somebody based on, like, how they draw porn, basically. Like, if you see... drawn porn, depending on the style that they use and the themes they choose to incorporate into a story, if it has one, or like basically how they draw a masculine or feminine form and what kind of delineations they choose to make between them, the kind of how much they pay attention to clothing style and things that aren't directly the features of the human body, but that serve to sort of accentuate and like frame them, you know. You can read a lot about their, you know, like the political orientation of them. And also how freaky they get with it. Russell would talk the same way Trump did to Putin in that tweet. I don't know what tweet we're referring to, but sure. Was that the one where, like, Trump was like, yeah, Putin, you're a big meanie and I'm not your friend anymore or something like that? Because if so, then yes. I remember that. You know, Trump, like, had a miniature crash out at Putin because, you know, he, like, for a second realized that Putin was, like, using him for political... Yeah, stop, Putin, stop! Basically that. Sorry about the giant plane. Yes, the fucking bribe that Qatar gave to Trump. Literally like some cartoonish shit. You guys remember when that Democratic Senator, Bob Menendez, was literally gifted like gold bars? He literally had gold bars that were given to him by the Egyptian government. Like, fucking John bribery over here, you know? And Trump just surpassed that, but like unprompted. The Qatari government was like, yeah, here's a fucking gigantic... massive, like, modified 747 jet plane, like passenger airline, and he was like, great, it's fantastic, it's fabulous, it's gonna be the new Air Force One. And then the Air Force was like, well, we need to fucking modify the shit out of it, so it's probably not gonna be. But yeah, it was like a $400 million airplane. Uh, 1v3, could you please ban that guy who's saying, like, cheap viewers or some shit? Thank you very much. If they were as dumb as they act, I would be able to manipulate them, run circles around them, and rule the world. They are as dumb as they act, so you probably could. Assuming you could get to the position where, like, they would let you do that, and their, like, personal bouncer wouldn't fucking have you escorted out of the establishment or something like that. Yeah, you like legitimately. It is so fucking incredibly simple to like just lead people like that, like Trump and everybody else in the administration by the nose. Probably just children being protected by some secret group of people. Indeed, and I wonder if this group of people are like fabulously wealthy and own all of the what they would call the means of production and are strategically trying to choose areas where their stooges can be most effective at safeguarding their bottom line. You know, something like that. I'm sure. You know, I wonder. Yeah, they do basically have the intelligence of kids. Heard about the theory that Trump has secret acts that Russia has in his possession, since Trump has been in Russia for quite a while. Stuff that can't get out. That being why Trump would be so nice, as if Russia is his little brother. I've heard theories about that. The problem with that theory, I think, is that it basically like it would have to be some truly insane shit. And I don't doubt that, like, obviously Russia has some kind of dirt on Trump that they could leverage against him, right? Such as the nature of like business relationships like that. But I think it's kind of like Putin is an authoritarian strongman, which is a type of person that Trump really likes, and he's an oligarch. And Trump's businesses and Trump himself have very closely integrated ties to the Kremlin, to other Russian oligarchs, right? So I think that's the nature of that relationship there. I think it's primarily that, and dirt that they have on Trump would just happen to be a part of that relationship, that pre-existing set of relationships. That's what I think. And yeah, of course, we're talking also about like Trump has a really close relationship with Epstein. So if anything, it would be like some Epstein associates that probably have that sort of shit on Trump, that have some insane dirt. But of course, I'm sure that there are plenty of Russian oligarchs that also knew Epstein because he was a power broker. Makes sense to be lovers. I don't think Trump is gay for Putin. I think he's just broadly gay for authoritarians. That would be funny, but I don't think it's real, unfortunately. You know, all of the fan fiction bros are devastated right now. Well, I mean, not really, because we know that Trump loves authoritarians anyway, so, you know, they could write all the fucking fan fiction they want, and they'd be like, hey, you know what, fuck it, I buy it. But yeah. But I think a fan fiction it remains. More or less. Heard that Epstein was some person in the past that would blackmail people? Yeah, basically. Jeffrey Epstein, notorious, you know, child sex trafficker, was essentially he was a power broker. He was very wealthy, right? So similar to other like oligarchs and fucking you know, capitalists, right? He owned a lot of stuff. He had assets and whatnot, but his real power was in that he was socially connected to many, many other oligarchs, capitalists, politicians, and in some cases even prominent members of the scientific community. And you would have these lavish parties on Little St. James or whatever. He would do all these sorts of backroom deals with people. Basically, it's like the highest possible level of trading in gossip. How'd the average person learn about this? These are very poorly kept secrets. It's not as important that these are like, the fact that these dealings happen is not what needs to be kept secret in order for Jeffrey Epstein to have been able to do his thing, right? The secrets themselves need to be kept secret. So that's why we talk about like what kind of dirt do they have on somebody. That's the secret. Not that those relationships exist, you know? Like we know about the Lolita Express, we know about Little St. James and whatever. Basically, like, rich people already don't face consequences, so he could get away with some shit to build up relationships with other rich people and powerful people. He just needed to have, like, a couple of things that he could really, really, really leverage against them that actually weren't known to the public. And that's kind of how that position of his as a power broker worked. And of course, it also led to him making a lot of friends, quote unquote, and it led to him making a lot of enemies. And it's also why he was, died under very suspicious circumstances. Most likely is because there are so many people on his on the flight logs that have probably some heinous shit going on that they did in Little St. James that they couldn't risk any of that getting out if he decided to cooperate with some kind of intelligence agency, right? Eating oranges for his skincare and using raccoons for his hair. True. Yeah, he actually fucking grinds up oranges into paste and he just fucking rubs them all over himself. Many such cases. But yeah, that's how the average person learns about this. And this is a case where the conspiracy brain actually helps a little bit. Not that much, because people will say oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, this is evidence of the Jewish question or some shit. No. But nobody bought that Jeffrey Epstein offed himself, right? And like I said, it wasn't a lot. The fact that this sort of power broker relationship existed was not the thing that was a really closely kept secret. It was the leverage that came with the power broker relationship that they had to keep very secret. Anyways, that's all I got in me today. Who else is live? Cody. He's playing Rivals of Ether. Oh yeah, Hassan's talking about... So, this is something interesting that I didn't get to talk about, but wanted to, I guess. Hassan went to France to interview Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He is the leader of the French... Or leader, quote-unquote. He was certainly the leader in the French left bloc when it was La France Insoumise. Undefeatable France or something like that. France Invincible. Something like that. And now is a prominent figure in the Nouveau Front Populaire, the New Popular Front, which is the new left coalition, which performed really well in the recent elections. He did an interview, and I think that's super cool. Public-facing left activism stay winning, I guess. And then he got detained for a little while when he came back to the United States by Customs and Border Patrol, and he's talking about that right now. So, Azan raid incoming. Time to bring the Black Saint Nicholas back to Hassan, I guess. True. That's pretty true. I'll see you guys next time. I actually may need to turn on the AC unit because it did get kind of warm in my room. See you later.